She walked quickly but quietly to Benjamin. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Sir, please, don't eat that food." Benjamin looked up at her, surprised. "What are you saying, Genevieve?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Please believe me, Madame has been putting something dangerous in your meals. She and Master Chisor, they want to harm you. I heard them talking when they thought no one was around." Benjamin froze, his fork still in his hand. His face went pale. You must be mistaken," he whispered, almost too shocked to breathe. "No, sir," Genevieve insisted. Her voice was trembling but steady. "I would never lie to you. I beg you, do not eat this food. And please, install cameras in this house. See the truth for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Watch it with your own eyes." Benjamin stared at her. He had trusted this maid for years. She had been loyal, hard-working and kind. But the thought that his own wife, the woman he loved, could betray him was too heavy to accept. His chest tightened. He wanted to deny it. Still, something in Genevieve's eyes made him pause. She looked terrified, but also desperate to save him. Slowly he put down the fork. Genevieve quickly picked up his plate and carried it into the kitchen. She replaced it with another plate she had secretly prepared earlier, the same meal, but untouched by poison. She brought it back to him just as Eberechi's footsteps were heard returning down the stairs. Benjamin sat still, forcing himself to breathe normally. When Eberechi entered, she smiled sweetly. "I hope you're enjoying your food, my love," she said, sitting across from him. Her eyes sparkled with a secret joy as she watched him lift his fork. Benjamin forced a smile and nodded. "Yes, it tastes wonderful." He chewed slowly, pretending nothing was wrong. Deep inside, his heart was breaking. He wanted to believe Genevieve was wrong, but a cold fear had already settled inside him. What do you do when the people you love and trust turn against you? Will Benjamin survive their betrayal? Keep watching to find out. Benjamin's life looked perfect. He was young, handsome, and very rich. But what made people love him most was his kind heart. He never looked down on anyone. He spoke with respect to everyone, no matter who they were. Benjamin owned a big company with many workers, yet he treated them like family. When someone was sick, he paid the hospital bills. When a worker lost a parent, Benjamin sent money and even came to the funeral. To him, money was not just for spending. It was for helping people. Outside work, he also gave to churches, orphans, widows, and strangers. People called him a blessing. Everyone admired him. At home, Benjamin was the same. Genevieve, his maid, always said to herself that she had never met a man like him. In other houses where she had worked before, she was shouted at, insulted, and treated like dirt. But here, Benjamin respected her. He even told her to rest whenever she worked too much. "Genevieve," he would say kindly, "you have done enough for today. Go and rest." Those words stayed with her. She was quiet and humble, but she gave her best to his home. She cleaned, cooked, and kept everything in order. She had no family in the city, so the mansion became her world. And in that world, Benjamin was like a master who treated her with kindness. Then there was Eberechi, Benjamin's wife. She was very beautiful. Wherever she went, people admired her. Her smooth skin, long hair, and stylish clothes made her look like a queen. People often whispered, "Benjamin is lucky to have her." But inside, Eberechi was not happy. She had wealth, beauty, and status, yet she craved more attention, more excitement, more power. She often thought Benjamin was too safe, too attentive, too boring. Though she smiled in public, her heart carried a longing she never spoke about. Benjamin didn't notice. He trusted her. He loved her and devoted every free moment to her, always ready to attend to her needs, even in his busiest moments. To his friends, he often said, "Eberechi is my crown. I couldn't ask for a better wife." One of those friends was Chisor. Chisor and Benjamin had grown up together in the same poor neighborhood. They were like brothers, but while Benjamin worked hard and became successful, Chisor always struggled. Benjamin had helped him many times, giving him money to start businesses, even buying him a car. Benjamin also gave him contracts through his company so that he could stand on his own. Whenever Benjamin introduced him, he proudly said, "This is my brother, Chisor. We have been together since childhood." To everyone, Chisor looked like a loyal friend. He laughed, smiled, and acted as if he were truly happy for Benjamin. But deep in his heart, he harbored a deep envy toward him. Every time he came to Benjamin's mansion, he felt jealous. He saw the big house, the cars, the wealth, and thought, why is this not mine? And then there was Eberechi. To Chisor, she was not just Benjamin's wife. She was a prize he wished he had. When she walked past, her perfume in the air, he always looked at her too long. He tried to hide it, but envy is like fire. It cannot stay hidden forever. One evening, Benjamin hosted friends in his home. They laughed, ate, and enjoyed themselves. Benjamin, as usual, made sure everyone was comfortable. Genevieve moved quietly in the background, serving food. Eberechi sat beside her husband, smiling politely. But her eyes sometimes betrayed her true feelings. She noticed how everyone praised Benjamin, and inwardly she sighed. This husband of mine doesn't know how to have fun. He does everything right, and that makes him even more boring. Across the room, Chisor's eyes rested on her again. He quickly looked away when Benjamin turned, but for a moment the truth was clear. He wanted Benjamin's wife, and he wanted Benjamin's life. Benjamin didn't see it. To him, his life was perfect, a loving wife, a loyal maid, and his best friend always by his side. But beneath the smiles and laughter, a storm was slowly building. And in Chisor's heart, the seed of betrayal had already been planted. The day came when Benjamin had to travel for business. He kissed his wife goodbye, hugged her gently, and promised to return soon. Eberechi, take care of yourself, he said with his usual warm smile. If you need anything, call me. You know I'll always provide. Eberechi nodded and smiled back, but her heart felt cold. She wanted him gone quickly. The truth was, she no longer cared much about his promises. His kindness, which other women admired, no longer excited her. She wanted something different, something risky, something that made her feel alive again. After Benjamin left, the house felt quieter. Genevieve continued with her duties, sweeping the sitting room and polishing the table. She missed her master whenever he travelled, not only because he was kind to her, but because the house seemed less bright without him. That evening, a knock came at the gate. It was Chisor. He wore his usual fake smile and carried a bottle of wine in his hand. Eberechi, he greeted warmly. I just came to check on you. Benjamin is my brother, and since he's away, I thought I should come and keep you company. Eberechi raised her brow, but let him in. She liked the way he spoke, casual, bold, and full of charm. Something about his eyes told her he was daring. They sat in the living room. Chisor cracked jokes, made her laugh, and praised her beauty in ways Benjamin never did. Eberechi, he said softly, leaning closer, do you know you are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen? Sometimes I wonder how Benjamin managed to win such a treasure. She blushed. She tried to act annoyed, but she enjoyed the words. No one had spoken to her like that in a long time. As they laughed together, Genevieve passed by, carrying a tray of snacks. She noticed how close they were sitting. She paused for a second, her eyes narrowing, but she said nothing. She only bowed her head respectfully and walked away. Later in the night, Chisor stood up and pretended to leave. But after a few minutes, he returned with a troubled look. My car won't start, he said. It's late. Please, can I sleep here tonight? Just on the couch. I'll leave early in the morning. Eberechi hesitated, but agreed. Fine, you can stay in the guest room. The house grew quiet. Genevieve retired to a small room at the back, but her mind was restless. Something about the way Chisor had looked at Madame Eberechi troubled her. She prayed silently that nothing foolish would happen, but she was wrong. At midnight, when the house was still, Chisor rose from the guest room. He walked softly down the corridor and stopped at Eberechi's door. He knocked gently at first, then entered without waiting for an answer. Eberechi was awake, lying in bed. When she saw him, she sat up in shock. What are you doing here? She whispered. Chisor moved closer, his voice low and smooth. You know why I'm here, Eberechi. Stop pretending. I see the way you look at me. I know you're lonely. Her heart beat fast. She wanted to tell him to leave, but her body refused. He touched her hand, whispered more words of desire, and her little resistance melted away. That night, betrayal was born. In the small room at the back, Genevieve turned in her sleep. A sound from the corridor made her eyes open. She listened carefully. At first she thought it was nothing, but then she heard faint whispers, the creak of a bed, and muffled laughter. Her heart sank. She knew. She pulled her blanket over her head, tears stinging her eyes. How could Madame do this? She thought. Does she not know how much Master loves her? She lay there, staring into the darkness. Her chest ached with sorrow. To her, Benjamin was a good man who gave his all. He didn't deserve this kind of pain. The next morning, the house felt different. Chizor acted too relaxed, sitting on the sofa like the place belonged to him. He called Genevieve to bring him water and even commanded her to clean his shoes. She obeyed quietly, but anger burned in her heart. Eberechi walked around with a forced smile, pretending nothing had happened. But whenever her eyes met Chizor's, a secret fire passed between them. Days went by and still Chizor did not leave. He stayed longer, giving excuses, laughing with Eberechi, and treating Genevieve like a servant of his own. Genevieve kept her silence, but her eyes saw everything. Each night she lay in bed, praying her master would return soon. But she also feared. When he did return, would he still find his home the same? The seed of betrayal had taken root, and Chizor, now bolder than ever, was ready to water it until it grew. The days turned into weeks. Whenever Benjamin travelled for business, Chizor found his way back into the house. At first, he pretended it was just to check on Eberechi, but soon it became clear he came only for her. They laughed together in the sitting room. They whispered in the corners of the house. And at night, when the world was quiet, they slipped into each other's arms. Eberechi, once proud of her husband, now began to see him differently. Benjamin still showered her with love. He bought her gifts, sent her flowers, and called every night from his hotel room. His voice was warm, full of care. "My queen," he would say over the phone, "is everything all right at home? Do you need anything? Remember, I'll always provide." "Yes, everything is fine," she would reply sweetly, but in her heart she rolled her eyes. To her, Benjamin's love now felt heavy, boring, and old. She no longer admired him. Instead, her mind burned with thoughts of Chizor, bold, daring, and reckless. Genevieve saw it all. She noticed how Madame smiled too much whenever Chizor came. She noticed how her eyes lit up in a way they never did when Master Benjamin was around. Every night, Genevieve prayed quietly in her small room. One afternoon, while Benjamin was still away, Eberechi and Chizor sat in the dining room. Their voices were low, but Genevieve happened to pass by the corridor with laundry in her hands. She froze. "Eberechi," Chizor whispered, leaning close, "can't you see? As long as Benjamin is alive, we can never truly be together. He is the wall standing between us and happiness." Eberechi looked at him nervously. "But he is my husband." "Husband," Chizor scoffed. "A husband who spends more time on the road than with you? A husband who gives his heart to strangers instead of his own wife? Eberechi, open your eyes. You deserve better. You deserve me." Eberechi lowered her gaze. His words pierced her heart. She thought of all the nights she slept alone while Benjamin travelled, of all the money he gave to outsiders while she longed for more attention. Slowly she began to believe Chizor. "What do we do then?" she asked softly. Chizor's lips curved into a dark smile. He reached into his bag and brought out a small container. Inside was a strange white powder. "This," he said, placing it in her hands, "is the key to our freedom. It is blended glass. Just a little in his food, little by little, and soon his organs will fail. Everyone will think it is sickness. No one will ever suspect you." Eberechi's hands trembled as she held the container. "Are you sure?" "Trust me," Chizor said firmly, holding her eyes. "Do this, and Benjamin will be out of the way. Then his wealth, his house, his estates, they will all be ours, and after that I will take you far away. We will start a new life, free and happy." Eberechi looked at the container again, her lips slowly curved into a smile. "Yes! Maybe this is the way." From the corridor, Genevieve's body froze. Her heart pounded loudly in her chest. She almost dropped the laundry from her hands. Ground glass? Poison? She pressed her back against the wall, her breath shaky. Tears filled her eyes as she realized the full weight of what she had just heard. How could Madame agree to this? How could she plan to kill such a good man? Genevieve wanted to run into the room and shout, but fear held her back. She was only a maid. What if they turned against her? What if they harmed her too? She hurried quietly back to her small room, dropped the laundry, and sat on the bed, holding her head in her hands. "What do I do?" she thought. "If I keep silent, Master may die. If I speak, they may attack me. Lord help me." That night she did not sleep. She tossed and turned, her mind heavy with worry. She thought of Benjamin's smile, his kindness, the way he always treated her with respect. She thought of how he once paid her younger brother's hospital bills without hesitation. How can I allow such a man to die like this? Her tears rolled freely. Her heart ached with loyalty. I must protect him somehow. The next morning, Benjamin returned from his trip. As always, he came with a smile and gifts. He hugged Eberechi warmly and handed her a small box. Inside was a diamond necklace, shining like fire. "For you, my queen," he said. Eberechi gasped and pretended to be overjoyed. "Oh, Benjamin, it's beautiful." She kissed him lightly, but in her mind she thought only of the container hidden in her drawer. That evening, she prepared his favourite meal herself. She wore a smile, humming softly as she cooked. When the food was ready, she carefully sprinkled the powder into it, stirring slowly until it dissolved. Her lips curved into a secret smile. Soon, she thought, my new life with Chisor will begin. Genevieve watched silently from the doorway, her chest tight with fear. She saw everything. Her hands shook as she gripped her apron. As Benjamin sat at the table ready to eat, Genevieve's heart screamed inside her chest. She knew the plate before him carried death. And yet she could do nothing. Not yet. The night was heavy, the air was tense, and in the quiet dining room the first poisoned meal sat before the man who trusted his wife the most. Eberechi, dressed elegantly, welcomed him with her usual smile. "Your favourite meal tonight," she said softly. Her voice was sweet, but her heart carried a deadly secret. She watched him sit at the table and pour himself a glass of wine. Everything seemed perfect. "Let me just take this call," Eberechi said suddenly, standing up and leaving the dining room. She walked upstairs with her phone, her high heels clicking softly on the floor. The moment she disappeared, Genevieve stepped out from the corner of the room. She had been standing nearby, pretending to arrange the flowers, but her eyes had not left the table for a second. Her heart was beating fast. She knew this was the moment. She walked quickly but quietly to Benjamin. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Sir, please, don't eat that food." Benjamin looked up at her, surprised. "What are you saying, Genevieve?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Please believe me, Madame has been putting something dangerous in your meals. She and Master Chisor, they want to harm you. I heard them talking when they thought no one was around." Benjamin froze, his fork still in his hand. His face went pale. You must be mistaken," he whispered, almost too shocked to breathe. "No, sir," Genevieve insisted. Her voice was trembling but steady. "I would never lie to you. I beg you, do not eat this food. And please, install cameras in this house. See the truth for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Watch it with your own eyes." Benjamin stared at her. He had trusted this maid for years. She had been loyal, hard-working and kind. But the thought that his own wife, the woman he loved, could betray him was too heavy to accept. His chest tightened. He wanted to deny it. Still, something in Genevieve's eyes made him pause. She looked terrified, but also desperate to save him. Slowly he put down the fork. Genevieve quickly picked up his plate and carried it into the kitchen. She replaced it with another plate she had secretly prepared earlier, the same meal, but untouched by poison. She brought it back to him just as Eberechi's footsteps were heard returning down the stairs. Benjamin sat still, forcing himself to breathe normally. When Eberechi entered, she smiled sweetly. "I hope you're enjoying your food, my love," she said, sitting across from him. Her eyes sparkled with a secret joy as she watched him lift his fork. Benjamin forced a smile and nodded. "Yes, it tastes wonderful." He chewed slowly, pretending nothing was wrong. Deep inside, his heart was breaking. He wanted to believe Genevieve was wrong, but a cold fear had already settled inside him. That night, after Eberechi went to bed, Benjamin sat alone in his study. Genevieve came quietly to his door. "Sir, did you think about what I said?" Benjamin nodded slowly. His voice was heavy. "Tomorrow we will install cameras everywhere." And so the next day, hidden cameras were placed in the kitchen, the dining room, and even the hallways. Nobody knew except Benjamin and Genevieve. Days later, Benjamin returned home from work. Eberechi greeted him warmly at the door with a smile that seemed full of love. "I made your favourite dish tonight," she said sweetly. Her voice was calm, but in her heart she carried a dark excitement. Earlier in the kitchen, she had carefully taken out the small packet Chisor had given her. She poured the deadly powder into Benjamin's food and mixed it well, convinced that her plan was working. With pride, she plated the meal and carried it out to the dining table. What she didn't know was that Genevieve had been watching from the corner. The loyal maid, silent as a shadow, waited for her chance. As soon as Eberechi stepped away to fetch something, Genevieve quickly swapped the poisoned plate with the safe one she had prepared earlier. Her hands shook, but her determination was firm. She would not allow her master to die. By the time Benjamin sat down at the table, everything looked normal. Eberechi leaned forward with a smile, her eyes full of secret joy. "Eat, my love," she urged gently. Benjamin lifted his fork, his face calm, though his heart pounded in his chest. Genevieve stood nearby, pretending to arrange the table, but in truth her eyes never left him. Eberechi watched every bite, her smile growing wider. To her, every spoonful was a step closer to her freedom with Chisor. She imagined the new life waiting for her once Benjamin was gone. Benjamin forced himself to chew, his face showing nothing. He swallowed slowly, pretending everything was fine. When he finished, he kissed Eberechi lightly on the cheek, thanked her, and excused himself to his study. That night, when the house was quiet, Benjamin sat with Genevieve by his side. His hands trembled as he switched on the hidden camera recordings from the kitchen. The screen flickered to life. Together they watched as Eberechi opened the packet, poured the strange powder into his food, and mixed it quickly before placing the dish on the plate. Benjamin's face went pale. His chest tightened as if the air had been stolen from him. He gripped the arm of his chair hard, unable to look away. This cannot be true," he whispered, his voice broken and heavy with pain. But the truth was undeniable. The woman he loved, the woman he trusted above all else, was the one plotting his death. Genevieve stood silently beside him, her eyes wet with sadness. Yet she remained strong. She placed her hand gently on his shoulder and whispered, "I am so sorry, sir." Benjamin closed his eyes, his heart breaking piece by piece. The world he thought he had built so perfectly was crumbling around him. And that was how the truth began to unfold. Not through gossip, not through suspicion, but through the cold, merciless eye of the camera. The house grew quiet in the days that followed. Benjamin had seen the truth with his own eyes. His wife wanted him dead. The pain was unbearable, but he knew he couldn't confront her yet. If he did, she and Chisor might escape, and their plan would remain hidden. He needed proof so strong that no one could deny it. So Benjamin made a decision. He would play along. That evening, Genevieve entered his study. His face was pale, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "Sir," she whispered, "what will you do now?" Benjamin looked at her, his jaw tight. "We must make them believe their plan is working. I will pretend to be sick. We will watch how far they will go." Genevieve nodded slowly, though her heart ached for him. "Then I will help you." The next morning, Benjamin sat at the dining table with dark circles under his eyes. Genevieve had carefully brushed powder across his skin to make him look weak and pale. She even rubbed a little oil on his forehead so it appeared damp with sweat. When Eberechi came downstairs, she stopped in surprise. "My love, you don't look well," she said, her voice sweet but her eyes cold. Benjamin coughed weakly into a napkin. "I don't know. I feel so tired lately," he murmured. Eberechi touched his shoulder gently, hiding the smile that wanted to spread across her lips. "Don't worry, you'll be fine," she said softly, but inside her heart danced with joy. The poison was working. What she didn't know was that Genevieve had already swapped his plate that morning, just as she always did. Benjamin was eating safe food, but his wife believed every bite was poisoned. Days passed, and Benjamin acted weaker and weaker. He stayed in bed often, coughing and pretending he couldn't walk far. Genevieve brought him trays of food and water, quietly removing anything Eberechi prepared before it reached him. To everyone else in the house, it looked like their master was fading away. Whenever Eberechi entered his room, she wore the mask of a caring wife. She wiped his forehead with a cloth, brought him pillows, and whispered, "You'll get better soon, my love." But when she was alone with Chisor, her true face came out. One evening, Genevieve passed by the back garden and heard laughter. She stopped quietly and listened. Chisor's voice was filled with pride. "I told you it would work. Look at him now, coughing, weak, almost finished. Soon he'll be gone and you'll be free." Eberechi laughed softly. "Finally, Chisor, our dream is almost here. I only need to pretend a little longer, and then Benjamin will be out of the way forever." Genevieve's stomach turned. She clenched her fists, fighting back tears. The betrayal was deeper than anything she had imagined. Inside the mansion, Benjamin lay in his bed, pretending to sleep. When Eberechi entered, she sat beside him and stroked his hand. "How are you feeling?" she asked sweetly. Benjamin coughed weakly. "Still not well," he whispered. Eberechi leaned close, her lips almost brushing his ear. "Sometimes I wish you would just go," she said softly. Her words carried no love, no mercy. "Then I could finally live the life I want." Benjamin's heart shattered. Though he already knew the truth, hearing it from her own lips cut deeper than any knife. He kept his eyes half closed, pretending not to hear, but inside his soul cried out. When she left the room, Benjamin sat up slowly, tears burning in his eyes. Genevieve entered quietly and froze when she saw his face. "Sir, did she?" Benjamin nodded, his voice heavy. "She wishes me dead, Genevieve, the woman I gave my heart to, the one I built my life with. She wants me gone." Genevieve placed a trembling hand over his. "I am so sorry, sir, but you must stay strong. We are not done yet." Benjamin wiped his tears and looked at her, his face hardening with determination. "You are right. I will not give up. I need to see just how far they are willing to go. Then, when the time is right, their evil will be exposed for all to see." And so Benjamin continued his act. He grew weaker each day in their eyes, coughing, stumbling, even pretending to faint. Eberechi watched with quiet joy, believing her victory was near. But Benjamin's mind was sharp, and his heart burned with a new fire. Though crushed by betrayal, he was determined to fight, not with anger, but with patience. The stage was set. His enemies thought they were winning. But Benjamin knew the game was far from over. The mansion looked peaceful from the outside, but inside a storm was growing. Benjamin had seen enough of his wife's betrayal. He knew her heart was gone, tied to Chisor and his false promises. But if he acted too quickly, they might escape and hide their crimes. So Benjamin began to plan a trap. Late one night, when the whole house was asleep, he sat in his study with Genevieve. His face looked pale and sickly, the disguise he had kept up for weeks, but his eyes were sharp, burning with determination. "Genevieve," he whispered, "we will let them believe they are winning, but before they can strike their final blow, I will strike mine." Genevieve leaned closer. "What will you do, sir?" Benjamin opened a safe hidden behind a bookshelf. Inside were stacks of papers, files, and property deeds. They represented his entire empire, land, businesses, bank accounts. "These are what they want," he said quietly, "but they will never touch them." With careful hands, he removed the real documents and locked them inside a metal briefcase. Then, from another drawer, he pulled out copies, fake papers he had prepared with his lawyer. They looked real, but held no value. "These," he said with a cold smile, "will be their reward." The next morning, Benjamin acted weaker than ever. He lay in bed, coughing into a cloth, while Eberechi stood at the door, pretending to be worried. "My love," she whispered, "you must rest. Don't worry about business or papers. I'll handle everything." Benjamin nodded weakly. "Yes, you're right," he whispered. He pointed toward his study. "In the safe, there are important files. Keep them safe for me in case I don't make it." Eberechi's heart leaped with joy. She tried to hide her excitement, but her hands trembled slightly as she kissed his forehead. "Don't talk like that," she said softly. "You'll be fine." But in her heart she could already see her new life, one without Benjamin. That afternoon, when she thought no one was watching, Eberechi went into the study. Her fingers shook as she opened the safe. Just as Benjamin had planned, the fake documents were waiting neatly inside. She smiled to herself, whispering, "At last." She stuffed them into her handbag and quickly called Chisor. When he arrived that evening, she handed him the papers. "It's all here," she said, her eyes shining. "Once Benjamin is gone, everything will belong to us." Chisor flipped through the files, his grin wide. "Perfect," he said. "I know a buyer who will take these immediately. We'll be rich, Eberechi. We'll leave this country and live like royalty." Eberechi's eyes softened. "Together forever?" Chisor kissed her hand. "Of course." But in his heart, another plan was already forming. The following day, Chisor arranged a secret meeting. He told Eberechi it was with a foreign buyer who could pay millions for the documents. But he never mentioned his full plan. Alone in his car, Chisor laughed to himself. Once I get the money, I'll vanish. I'll leave Eberechi behind like the fool she is. Why share when I can have it all? What he didn't know was that Benjamin already expected this. The buyer Chisor had contacted was not a stranger. He was a close friend of Benjamin, a businessman who owed him a great favor. Benjamin had quietly reached out, explaining everything. Now the friend was ready to play his role in the trap. That evening, Chisor arrived at a quiet hotel lounge with a black briefcase in his hand. He looked around carefully before sitting down. Soon the buyer joined him at the table. Chisor leaned forward, whispering with pride, "These are Benjamin's company papers. Once you pay me, I'll disappear from this country. Eberechi can do whatever she wants, but me, I'm flying abroad tonight." He pushed the fake documents across the table. The buyer smiled, then gave a small signal. In a flash, men in plain clothes surrounded Chisor. "Police!" one shouted. Guns pointed at him from every direction. Chisor froze, his mouth hanging open. The buyer pulled out his badge. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder." At that same moment, back at Benjamin's mansion, police cars pulled up. Neighbors peeked through their windows as officers walked straight in. They found Eberechi in the living room sipping wine, confident that her plan was working. "Mrs. Eberechi," the officer said firmly, "you are under arrest for attempted murder, theft, and conspiracy." Eberechi jumped up in shock. "What nonsense is this? Do you know who my husband is?" The officer didn't flinch. "Your partner Chisor has already been caught. He gave us everything we need." Her face changed instantly. First denial, then fury. She screamed and struggled, but the handcuffs clicked into place. By the next morning, the news was everywhere. Television stations, newspapers, and social media carried the shocking headlines. "Wealthy man betrayed by wife and best friend. Murder plot foiled." The day of judgment finally arrived. Benjamin sat quietly in the back of the police car, his heart heavy. In another van ahead, Chisor and Eberechi were being driven to court. Their faces were pale, their hands cuffed, their eyes filled with fear. Just weeks ago they were plotting his death. Now the whole world was about to hear their secrets. When the cars arrived, crowds had already gathered. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed. People who once admired Eberechi for her beauty now spat her name like poison. And Chisor, who had once been praised as Benjamin's closest friend, was now cursed as a snake. Benjamin walked past the crowd with quiet dignity. He looked calm on the outside, but inside, his heart was broken into pieces. The woman he loved, the friend he trusted, both had turned against him. Inside the courtroom, the air was heavy with tension. Chisor and Eberechi sat together at the defendant's table, but they no longer looked united. Chisor's eyes were cold, and Eberechi avoided his gaze. Their so-called love was gone. One by one, the pieces of evidence were shown. The video recordings of Eberechi mixing poison into Benjamin's food. The documents of his estate that she had stolen. The secret meeting where Chisor planned to sell the fake files and escape alone. Every detail was laid bare. The betrayal was undeniable. Benjamin sat quietly through it all, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed ahead. It was not easy. Each recording was like a dagger to his chest. But he refused to look weak. He refused to give them the satisfaction of breaking him. When the judge finally spoke, his words fell like thunder. "Eberechi, you are guilty of attempted murder. Chisor, you are guilty of conspiracy, fraud, and betrayal of trust. Both of you will face the full punishment of the law." Gasps filled the courtroom. Eberechi buried her face in her hands, weeping loudly. Chisor sat stiff, his lips pressed into a bitter line. But the truth was out. Their wickedness could no longer hide in the shadows. Outside, the press and townspeople waited for Benjamin. When he stepped out of the courtroom, they surrounded him, calling his name. For a moment he wanted to run, but then he remembered Genevieve's words, "Face the truth with courage, sir." He raised his hand for silence. His voice was steady but full of emotion. "I stand before you today," he began, "not as a rich man, not as a powerful man, but as a broken husband and a betrayed friend. The people I trusted most tried to destroy me." The crowd grew silent. His words cut deep, simple yet powerful. "But I am alive," he continued, "because of one person. Not my wife, not my friend, but someone the world would not have expected. My maid, Genevieve." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Benjamin's voice grew stronger. "When others plotted my death, she risked her own life to save me. She stood by me when I was weak. She reminded me of the value of loyalty, truth, and courage. For that, I will forever honor her. Tears filled Genevieve's eyes as she stood quietly at the side, her hands clasped. She had never wanted glory. Yet here she was, celebrated by all. The crowd erupted in applause. Reporters turned their cameras on her. Neighbors whispered her name with respect. For the first time, Genevieve was not seen as just a servant. She was a heroine. That evening, when the noise of the day was over, the mansion fell quiet again. Genevieve gathered her bag, ready to return home after her long shift. She always did this, slipping away quietly so the family could have their evening. But as she reached the door, Benjamin called out softly, "Genevieve." She turned, surprised. He was standing in the hallway, his eyes tired but gentle. "You were going to leave without saying good night?" he asked with a faint smile. She lowered her eyes respectfully. "I didn't want to disturb you, sir. You've had a heavy day." Benjamin stepped closer. His tone changed, softer, warmer. "Genevieve, I don't know how to thank you. Not as a master to a maid, but as a man whose life you saved." Her heart skipped a beat. She looked at him, unsure what to say. "You showed me a kind of loyalty I had never known," he continued. "When everything around me crumbled, you stood firm. I cannot imagine this house without your presence anymore." Genevieve's throat tightened. She forced a small smile. "It was my duty, sir. Nothing more." But her voice trembled, and her eyes betrayed the storm of emotions inside her. Benjamin noticed. He stepped closer, carefully, not rushing. "No, Genevieve, it was more than duty. You gave me something my wife never did, a heart I could truly trust." Her breath caught. She tried to look away, but his eyes held her there. For a long moment, silence filled the air between them. Only the soft ticking of the hallway clock could be heard. Benjamin gently reached for her bag. Their hands brushed, sending a spark neither could ignore. He held the bag in one hand, but his eyes never left hers. "I don't want to replace what I lost with lies," he said quietly. "I want something new, something true, and I see that in you." Tears welled in Genevieve's eyes. She whispered, "Sir," but her voice broke. Benjamin shook his head gently. "No titles tonight, just Benjamin. And I promise you this, whatever happens from now on, our bond will be built not on betrayal, but on truth and loyalty." Her lips curved into a small smile, trembling but beautiful. For the first time in her life, he looked at her not as a maid, but as a woman deserving of love and honor. That night did not end with a kiss or a fairy tale promise. It ended with something stronger, hope. Two souls wounded by betrayal had found each other in the ashes. The road ahead would not be easy. But for the first time, both Benjamin and Genevieve could see the beginning of something real. Betrayal had destroyed one bond, but it had also uncovered another, one purer, stronger, and destined to grow into love. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Your support helps us keep bringing you emotional, thought-provoking tales every week. See you in the next one.